In today's video, we're going to be turning Shrek realistic using Photoshop. This might look a little bit rough, but at the same time, it's just going to be a fun journey for all of us. I mean, everyone knows Shrek and everyone loves Shrek, so I'm sorry if I ruin it. The first thing I did was just grab a picture of Shrek, the poster, and put it right into place where it filled up the whole canvas. I then made that green background and grabbed a light, put it in there just so we have a reference for what the highlight should look like. Once I had that looking decent, I decided to start cutting out the shape of Shrek. It's gonna look a little weird at first, but just give me a little bit, you know? After I had that looking decent, I decided to start adding the skin. Oh no, what is that? I made the skin look a little more smooth and I just placed that in on his face shape. Didn't really look that good at first, it took me a little bit. I used a soft brush and I just faded out each of the skin layers into each other so it looked like they were kind of connected. I then started making some shadows, which is my favorite part because everything comes together and it just creates some shape. I duplicated the original Shrek poster and I just started tracing over the shadows of the eyeballs, the nose, and the mouth and all the things I needed to do just for a little outline for the future. Oh my gosh, what is that? Nevertheless, I had to continue adding these shadows to try to make it not look bad. I used this woman's nose for the nose, and it doesn't look great at the beginning, but at the end it turns out alright. So I matched her noses up with Shrek's nose, and then I used a bunch of warp to warp it into place in a position that kind of looked alright. I then put in the eyes and the eyebrows, but come to think about it, I don't know why I did this because I still needed to finish the nose. But first, I needed to change Shrek's skin to green, so now it looks similar. Maybe. Not really. I then decided it was time to move on to the eyeballs, so I took the eye off of this random guy and I just masked it into place just like that. It surprisingly fit too well. And then I made those eyeballs green, not the insides though, because that's not how it works. Just with a soft round brush, and it looks decent-ish. Then I did the same thing with the smile, grabbed this guy's smile, warped it into place, and cut out everything I needed. This looks cursed. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? I have to continue doing it because I said I would make this video, and now I have to. I fixed the mouth a little later because right now it looks like crap. So I moved on to the eyebrows. I took the eyebrows off of this random guy and I just masked out the parts I didn't need and put it into place just with a soft round brush to make it blend into the skin. Then I turned the skin under them green, obviously, to match Shrek, and that worked surprisingly well. I then went ahead and added some shadows just with an exposure layer and started masking out the shape a little bit more, trying to get the lighting down, and obviously this helps quite a bit. Shadows are actually quite boring to make, but they help a lot in the end and it's very vital to do so. I even ended up drawing in some forehead wrinkles because I saw he had some of those in the original photo. I then added that skin texture again over the parts that needed it, like the nose, because it was a little too smooth for my liking. After that, I finally started fixing the lips. I made it a little more yellow and a little less saturated, and that actually helped quite a bit. I then started adding the skin in on the neck, as well as putting some shadows in under his neck just to make it look like they aren't connected. For some reason, this actually helped quite a bit and made it look a lot more realistic. I then grabbed this fabric texture and I used it for a shirt. So I used warp and just added a bunch of different textures and put them together in the shape of the shirt he was wearing. I then went ahead and grabbed this rock texture to use for his clothes because for some reason they're rocks, I don't know. I warped that into place and this looks decent right now. I then used the same texture and did the exact same thing on the other side, and yeah, it works, I guess. I then started masking out the rocks to make them look a little more ragged and not so smooth just because it doesn't look realistic at all like that. I then decided to cut out the bottom of the rocks and make them kind of match the shirt shape that he has in the poster. I made the rocks a little bit darker and brown, as well as a little bit of green added onto it using this weird rock brush that I have. So I just put that on there to make it look a little less perfect and a little more messy. That actually helped quite a bit. After that, I added this white underlayer under the fabric because it just looked see-through. Then I started adding some shadows, and obviously this helped so much. After that, I moved on to another one of my favorite parts, and that's adding highlights. This makes everything look like a little more rounded and less flat. It still doesn't look amazing, but it worked for what I was trying to do. To do this, I first added an exposure layer, and then under that exposure layer, I added a hue saturation layer and made a little yellow, just like that highlight behind them. If you want to learn how to make highlights like me, then you can watch the tutorial I made on how to make the best perfect highlights in Photoshop. I then added some nice little touch-up shadows at the very end, and yeah, this helped a little bit just to outline all the parts, especially with the mouth. It helps suspiciously a lot. Started rounding off some shapes a little more. I then added some contrast, which actually helped quite a bit. I then realized I forgot to add the holes in the ears, so I just used a dark exposure layer and then painted them in and then faded out the parts that could be seen, and that looked perfect, actually perfect for what I needed to do. And after that, I added in the nice little logo and started adding a camera raw filter on top of the whole thing just to change the colors up a little bit and make everything match a little bit more. And without further ado, this, ladies and gentlemen, is Shrek Realistic using Photoshop.